The definition of conflict is a process that begins when one party perceives that another party has negatively affected or is about to negatively affect something that the first party cares about. Contemporary perspective differentiate types of conflict based on their effects. The first one is functional conflict. Functional conflict is support the goals of the group and improve its performance. Functional conflict strengthen relationship between people, create a competitive environment for shared goals and improve teamwork. For example, there is a debate among group teams and it's discussed about how to improve production. Secondly, dysfunctional conflict. Conflict that hinder group performance. Dysfunctional conflict create a toxic environment that drains energy from individuals and hinder personal and organization growth. Those engaged in dysfunctional conflict undercut organizational objective and put their own interests and ego ahead of the organization.
Researchers have classified conflict into three categories. Three types of conflict are task conflict. It occurs when employees disagree about the best way to complete a task. Task conflict can occur through a difference in perception or behavior patterns of individuals in an institution. To manage task conflict effectively, it is important to encourage open communication, active listening, and constructive problem solving. Second, relationship conflict. This differs in personality, communication style, taste, and thinking style can cause relationship conflict. Relationship conflict often involve emotion, personal feelings, and interpersonal tension. People who have never interacted before in a corporate environment are asked to work together in a team. Third is process conflict. Process conflict refers to disagreement within a team. It can happen when team members have different opinions about how to approach tasks, allocate resources, make decisions, or manage workflow. The way to understand conflict is to consider its locus. There are three basic types. First, dyadic conflict. A dyadic conflict occurs between two people. Second is integral conflict. Integral conflict is an incompatible perception of goals between two or more people that arise due to the membership of these people in different social groups. Third is intergroup conflict. Intergroup conflict occurs when two or more individuals from the same team or group disagree. Intergroup conflict is a type of dispute that arises among individuals in a group with shared objectives, values, and other defining characteristics.
But the first stage is potential oppositions or incompatibility. This stage is the first step that conflict got started due to the various conditions that may lead and develop of the conflict. We got three conditions that may trigger the conflict. First, we got communication, structure, and personal variable. For communication, we can simplify it when there's two parties got misunderstanding due to insufficient or too much exchange of information or a breakdown communication channel. For example, Regis is a new manager at a Florian company. He is leading a project and Ruby is one of his team members. Before they start, Regis didn't tell the objective of the project clearly, so when Ruby starts her work halfway through, Regis instructs her that she's doing the work incorrectly. Next is structure. Conflict may arise due to differences in the number of team members and task specialization, organizational work, or group dependence. When the group is large, this problem becomes even more obvious. The likelihood of conflict increasing with work specializations. Let's take the scenario where Abel sells vehicle and either his co-worker must approve the credit of everyone who buy a car from him. If either doesn't approve his client, he will prevent Abel from receiving his commission, favorable performance assessment, and his payment. This is a setup that wants for a conflict. Lastly is a personal variable. Personal variables are the factor where the boss, who may be very authoritarian or restrictive at work, which can lead to the conflict. When there are problems with its diversity, such as prejudice or the type of award person that deserve based on their contribution, value differences can also be arise. If two co-workers simply don't like each other, conflict may result. Perhaps a man you work with has a bad reputation. You find it very offensive when he makes comments, laugh, or talk about his wife and family in general. That is a sensitive subject that could lead to disagreement. For the second stage, we got cognitions and personalization. So, what is perceived conflict and felt conflict? Conflict must be perceived by the parties to it whether conflict exists in the perception issues. If no one is aware of the conflict, then it's generally agreed that no conflict exists, because conflict is a perceiving, not mean that it's personalized. For instance, Kaya may be aware that Dilip and him are in serious disagreement, but it may not make Kaya tense or nervous, and it may have no effect whatsoever on Kaya's affections toward Dilip. It is at the fact level when the individual becomes emotionally involved, the parties experience, such as anxiety, tensions, or hostility. The third stage is intentions. Intentions are decisions to act. In each way, intentions intertwine between people's perceptions and emotions, also their overt behavior. There's a 5 conflict handling intentions can be identified. The first one is competing, when one person seeks to satisfy his or her own interest regardless of the impact on the other parties to the conflict. He is competing. The second one is collaborating, a situation in which the parties to a conflict each desire to satisfy fully the consent of all the parties. In collaborating, the intentions of the parties are to solve the problem by clarifying differences rather than by accommodating various points of view. The third one is avoiding. A person may recognize that a conflict exists and want to withdraw from it or suppress it. Avoiding included trying to just ignore a conflict and avoiding the other with whom you disagree. The fourth one is accommodating. The willingness of one partying a conflict to place the opponent's interest above his or her own. The fifth one is compromising. A situation in which each party to a conflict is willing to give up something. Intentions provide generally cut lines for parties in a conflict situation. They are defined each party's purpose, yet people's intention is not fixed. During the conflicts, they might change because of reconceptualization because of emotional reaction to the behavior of the other party. The stage 4 is behavior. Behavior is the stage where the conflicts become evident as it's included to the statement, action, and reaction of the party involved in the conflicts. This behavior might be overt attempt to get the other party to reveal their intentions, but they have a stimulus quality that separates them from the actual intention stage. Behavior is the actual dynamic process of interactions. Perhaps party A make a demand on the party B argue back, party A threatens, and so on. The intensity of the behavior falls along a conflict-oriented continuum. If the intensity is low, the conflict might just be a minor misunderstanding, and if the intensity is high, the conflict could be an effort to harm or even destroy the other party. For the last stage is outcomes. Outcomes of a conflict can be either functional or dysfunctional. Functional outcomes occur when the conflict is constructive. It may be hard to think of times when people disagree and argue, and the outcome is somehow good. But think of the conflict for a moment as the antidote to the good thing. If a group member wants the consensus, they are bound to all agree before all the viable alternatives have been reviewed. Conflicts keep that from happening. The group may be close to agreeing on something, and a member will speak up and argue for another point of view. The conflicts that result could yield a positive result. As for dysfunctional outcome, they are generally more well-known and understood. Uncontrolled opposition breeds discontent, which act to the sabotage and eventually lead to the dissolution of the group. Organizations meet their ultimate demands more often than you think because of dysfunctional conflict. People who hate each other and don't get along can make decisions to run a company well.
Just distributive and integrative bargaining. Negotiation is a process in which two or more parties exchange goods or services and attempt to agree upon the exchange rate for them. We use the term negotiation and bargaining interchangeably. We face negotiation every day. Some are obvious, like negotiating your salaries at a new job. Other more are subtle, like working with a group on a volunteer project. Bargaining divided into two, which is distributive bargaining and integrative bargaining. Distributive bargaining is a competitive bargaining strategy in which one party gains only if the other party lose something. For example, if you go to the supermarket and buy some product, you won't be able to bargain because they have a fixed price. Integrative bargaining a negotiation strategy in which parties collaborate to find a win-win solution to their dispute. For example, if you do that, I pay you 50% of the price upfront and the rest other just do it. Distributive versus integrative bargaining. We look at 6 bargaining characteristics, which is goal, motivation, focus, interest, information sharing, and duration of relationship. First, goal of distributive bargaining is get as much of the pie as possible. Meanwhile, goal of integrative bargaining is expand the pie so that both parties are satisfied. Next, motivation. Motivation of distributive bargaining is win-lose. Meanwhile, motivation of integrative bargaining is win-win. Focus distributive bargaining is position. Meanwhile, focus integrative bargaining is interest. Interest distributive bargaining is opposed. Meanwhile, integrative bargaining is concurrent. Information sharing distributive bargaining is low because sharing information will only allow other party to take advantage. Meanwhile, information sharing integrative bargaining is high because sharing information will be allow each party to find way to satisfy interest of each party. And last, duration of relationship, distributive bargaining is short term. Meanwhile, integrative bargaining is long term. Next, another graph is research about stepping out the bargaining zone. Research shows that when you are engaged in distributive bargaining, one of the best things you can do is make the first offer and make it an aggressive one, like show powers. Second, establish an ensuring bias. And another distributive bargaining technique is revealing a deadline.
The negotiation process contains 5 steps, each involving certain characteristics that progressively enhance the potential for agreement between all involved parties. The first step is preparation and planning. During this stage of negotiation, all participating parties organize together and obtain the pertinent fact or information required for an effective negotiation to take place, which could include the determination of benefit. You as a party in the negotiation need to determine and clarify your own goal in the negotiation. This is a time when you take a moment to define and truly understand the term and condition of the exchange and the nature of the conflict. Second, definition of ground rule. Once you are done with your planning and develop a strategy, you are ready to define with other party the ground rules and procedure of the negotiation itself. This is the time when you and the other party will come to agreement on questions like, first, who will do the negotiation? Will we do it personally or invite a third party? Second, where will the negotiation take place? Third, if an agreement can be reached, will there be any specific process to handle that? Usually, it's during the parties will exchange their initial proposal or demand. Third, clarification and justification. Once initial position have been exchanged, the clarification and justification stage can begin. Both you and the other party will explain, clarify, and justify your original position or demand. For you, this is an opportunity to educate the other side on your position and gain further understanding about the other party and how they feel about their side. You might each take the opportunity to explain how you arrived at your current position and include any supporting documentation. Each party might take this opportunity to review the strategy they plan for the negotiation to determine if it's still an appropriate approach.
For beginning and problem solving, the essence of the negotiation process is the actual give and take in trying to hash out an agreement. This is where both parties need to make concession. You and the other party will use various negotiation strategies to achieve the goal established during the preparation and planning process. You will use all the information you gather during the preparation and planning process to present your agreement and strengthen your position or even change your position if the other party's agreement is sound and makes sense. Lastly, closure and implementation. Once an agreement has been made, this is the stage in which procedures need to be developed to implement and monitor the terms of the agreement. They put all of the information into a format that acceptable to both parties and they formalize it. Formalizing the agreement can mean everything from a handshake to a written contract.
Now, I will explain about individual differences in negotiation effectiveness. There are 4 factors that influence negotiate. First, personality traits in negotiation. There are many personality traits that can both help and hinder a negotiation. For an example, we might think that agreeableness people are easy prey in negotiation, but it is weakly related to negotiation outcomes because the outcomes for this personality are depends on the situation. Usually, the extroverted person will success in negotiation because they tend to share more information than they should. Second, mood or emotion in negotiation. The moods and emotion works depend on the context of the negotiation. For an example, a negotiator who has a more power could show anger in negotiation, but if you don't have the power, you just seem to provoke them. However, you can evoking the emotions such as sympathy or expressing other emotions to persuade them. A negotiator who expresses positive and negative emotions in an unpredictable way will get more concession because the other party will feel less in control. Third, culture in negotiation. People from the different culture negotiate differently. Generally, people negotiate more effectively within culture between them. For an example, a Malaysian do better negotiating with a Malaysian than the American. Second, the negotiator must have a high in openness when having a cross-cultural negotiation. Third, people like to use certain negotiation strategies depending on their culture and they need to aware of the emotional dynamic in cross-cultural negotiation. Fourth, gender differences in negotiation. Obviously, men and women negotiate differently. The popular stereotype is women are more cooperative, pleasant, and relationship-oriented in negotiations than a man. Compared to men, women tend to behave in a less assertive and less self-interested. Sometimes, the rest of negotiation between women and men are similar. However, women are less aggressive in negotiation because they are worried about backlash from others.
Roles and function of third-party negotiations. There is 2 types of negotiating in the social context. Firstly, reputations. It is the way of other people think and talk about you. These roles will develop a trustworthy reputation for you to others, especially in competence and integrity. Secondly, relationships. We need to think about what best for the other party and also the relationship as a whole. We will be provided with more options if we build on trust with other parties by the repeated negotiations. If an individual or representative are unable to resolve their differences by doing direct negotiations, they will use the third-party negotiations. First, they will use a mediator. It is a neutral third party which facilitates a negotiated solution by using reasoning and persuasion, suggesting alternatives and others. Mediators are widely used in labor management negotiations and in civil court disputes. Next, an arbiter. It is a third party with the authority to dictate agreement. They can volunteer themselves or do it by force on the parties of a negotiation by law or contract. They got a very power according to the rules set by the negotiators. They might be put on limit to choose one of the parties offers and enforce it, or they can freely suggest other solutions. There is always a solution in arbitration. Lastly, a conciliator. A conciliator is a trusted third party who provides communication between the negotiating parties. This approach is used frequently in international labor, family, and community disputes. They always involve in a fact-finding, interpreting message, and convince parties to develop an agreement.